So it doesn't have a meaning as well. So.
Well, the meaning is to be determined, to be announced, to be shown. Yeah.
This is, I'll try to talk about this for a second. This is something that I gave up thinking about a long time ago. But Hebrew has no vowels.
Yes.
And so, in a sense, you have to know the language before you can read anything or say with any surety that this word means this particular thing. So there are signs that are made up for vowels, but it's only used, I'm told, for poetry, because the rest of it you're supposed to know.
So writing is just a memory device for language that you've already had access to.
Right, I think that would be a good way of thinking about it. And the other thing is that the Jews, the ancient Jews, did not allow the name of God to be used.
Right.
So they have a phrase that can be used, but it's a simulacrum.
Right. So if you came across those letters in the script, you would say Adonai, right?
Yes.
Instead of and so it would be sometimes Adonai in this case.
No, not Adonai, Elohim.
Pardon me.
Adonai is the one you're not supposed to say.
Oh, okay. And then which one are you supposed to say?
Elohim.
Elohim.
And that is that's just a convenient way to talk about God. And I had a teacher in high school, and I did what I was supposed to do. If you're writing it, you will write it with a dash in there and no vowel, and so that it doesn't. You're not taking the word of God in vain.
Right. I am the Lord thy God.
Yeah.
Brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. You shall
Right.
have no other gods.
And yeah,
Right.
and
So isn't that commandment saying, right, that God Himself, right, is this other that can't be grasped in any kind of a simulacra?
and the teacher, who was a terrific teacher, I really learned an awful lot from her. But she was very wary of my way of thinking about things, and she saw this dash. No way! I was supposed to write G-O-D, and I was did, and because I was writing G-D.
And which was this in a public school or was this in
Yes,
a
public school.
So the public school teacher was the public school teacher a Christian or a secular person of some kind?
And that's what she was French.
But was she Jewish?
No.
So she was unaware of this convention.
I think she was kind of aware. She could have been aware of it, but she didn't approve. But on the other hand, she also didn't approve of the way I used grammar, and so I learned an awful lot.
See, Derrida does something very similar in his concept of difference. And there's a funny little anecdote on film where he's talking about a possible, or maybe it's a faculty member at NYU who knows him or knew him, and the idea is that in French, différence is spelled with an E. And what Derrida does is he spells it with an A when he's trying to introduce this concept of the difference between of the grapheme, the thing that we see with our eye, and what we hear with our ear. If you spell the word with an E or an A, it makes no difference. Right? Right? It's the same word. But if you just say the word, you're not hearing the difference between an E and an A. But if you make an A and you see it with your eye, then there is a difference at the level of the grapheme. So it's a different word when it's written. And it's perhaps a different word, but you can't distinguish the difference at the level of hearing. Yeah, sorry.
It's actually,
So what this is going to point out is that the symbolic and the imaginary registers, insofar as the symbolic register is a register of language and the imaginary a register of perception, the symbolic and the imaginary registers are confusing here. Because at the level of sight, there's a difference. At the level of the imaginary, there's a difference. But at the imaginary level of sight, but at the imaginary level of hearing, there is none. So.
I'm not going to read all this out, but immediately after this, Baudrillard talks about the military and their use of how they discharge people for simulating illness or homosexuality, etc. But then the very next step is exactly about the representation of God and the iconoclasts who, you know, he actually says you think they were destroying it. They were terrified of images because once you represent a God, you then start to believe there is no God because you can represent him and have an idol. So it's which we still see in religions today. You don't want representations of certain religions don't want their gods to be represented in any form. So yeah, there's a whole section on that. The very next section is on that.
Yes.
Thing, so.
It's a related, so then it's hard to know, what the immediate relevance is for, say, the questions that you want to think about with technology. But it reminds us that for some reason in our modern moment, we've forgotten that our older conceptions of things would have no problem with kind of understanding that the experienced world is shifting, changing, unreliable, unpredictable, even though at times there's things that are predictable about it, even ourselves. So we might say, well, it's maybe possible to create a robot that would do one thing or another, but in the process of creating robots that might do one thing or another, depending on the complexity of their elements and so on, there's going to be some unpredictable things that those robots are going to be able to do. I just watched Frank and Robot, the movie that some of you were talking about. There's a beautiful little moment in there where Frank, the robot says, I'm not a human. There's a robot that says to a man, I'm not a human, I can't die. My memory can be wiped, my memory can be erased, but I'm not going to die, And Frank thinks of this wiping the robot's memory as a kind of murder or death. And he doesn't want to turn off his memory. Am I getting it right? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So what we notice there is that the robot is communicating to Frank saying, I'm not human, and you're treating me as if I am human. It's a nice little exchange. Maybe we can find a clip of it up. I think it's on YouTube, so maybe I can pull it up.
But the language we're using here, to me, is very appropriate to the novel we've just read. Because is Helen a simulation by this definition? Is she real? Is she altering reality? Changing that? And it makes you think about we're trying to create an artificial consciousness, but what we're doing is we're creating a simulation. We're not working with the real by these definitions.
What is it that we're working with if it's not the
Don't ask me hard questions.
Okay. I don't know I would say something like a signifying system.
Yeah.
And signifying systems can have effects that we would loosely call real. Right? Just like Helen. Helen has affects and she effects what's happening with Richard.
But the way I think about it is in the recent papers we've just given out, the little essays, is this idea, the one I like was this idea of Blu-rays, discs and plasma televisions, which by their very nature, we talk about them being more realistic, that they give us higher fidelity, sharper images. But those images, what we are actually doing, what Baudrillard would say, is creating a better simulation. We're not getting closer to reality. The simulation is getting better. And so,
what would you say the language of exactitude? The image in high definition is more exact. Is that actually the case? Is that incorrect to say that?
You see, I never thought about these terms. I'd always just bandy around terms like realistic. I would say the image is real. The image is more realistic. And now I'm beginning to question my use of those terms. That is it more real? Is a high-def TV more real, or is it separating us by being a better simulation? And Helen's the same. As she gains more use of language and the ability, is she becoming a real intelligence, or is she becoming a better simulation?
Like that uncanny valley where it's like, it's fake. It's just more information that's condensed. So it's like, wow, this is really a good simulation, but it's still fake. Like with the 4K TV.
The very first thing I showed you on the Ken Campbell video, the brainstorming, where he discusses the lizard. The closer we get to that lizard, where you don't notice that it's a robotic lizard. And the philosophical argument is no, it doesn't have the quality of the essence of consciousness, was the argument they used. But to me, that's tying in with this, that it doesn't have that reality. So,
I think it's two things. So I think it's funny that when you're talking about the TVs, you're saying we're constructing a better, the simulation is a better reality. It's better.
It's a better simulation.
It's a better simulation.
Better. You see, Patrick hates things that it's an improvement, it's better. You've got to be careful with language like that. You see, I'm catching what he would say now. You've got to be careful with better, put it that
Well, you
different.
said something was better than something else.
Yeah, I mean, we have a better picture.
Yeah,
On
so
the high definition. We have more pixels, so the picture is clearer. But that's not what we're talking about here. It's the fact that we have these mediated media experiences, and what we're doing is making that, just like Baudrillard's map, we're making it a higher resolution map. It's not the real experience, it's a mediated experience. And we're making that media experience more like reality. Once it becomes an immersive 3D environment, you can't tell. It's still a simulation.
Is it? Doesn't it just become reality then?
Well, this is the question.
I always think the lizard argument is like an easy out to say it doesn't have essence of lizard. How do you know it doesn't have the essence of lizard? You're not.
I don't think you did say that.
When you say
Well, wasn't he arguing for both points? I mean,
He did. He
argued equally that it is a real lizard. So I think you only disagree with Pat and Campbell.
well, yeah, I disagree with that argument that you can't say something doesn't have the essence of something because if it's in every particle a lizard, it's a lizard.
However, having the essence of a lizard does not necessarily follow that if you reproduce the essence of a lizard, you've reproduced the existence of a lizard.
Ken Campbell puts it in the way that, so you're talking about this qualia that may or may not exist. No one's ever seen one. Which is
The concept of qualia there, I think, I have to go back and look at it more carefully, but I think that concept of qualia is really confusing what we mean by essence and existence.
Yes.
Okay? So in other words, I could have a very exact reproduction of the essence of a lizard, just like I could have a very exact reproduction of the essence of a unicorn. Whatness is not thatness. okay? So I might have an exact model of the essence of a lizard, but I still don't have an existing lizard.
Is it fair to say that essence is something that's like subjective?
I'm sorry.
Is it fair to say that essence is something that's just totally subjective?
It's better to say that essence is whatness, right?
Right, but doesn't that mean
Not
there's
essence.
someone to say like what something's essence is? I mean, because essence doesn't exist without someone
A
thinking
real
about it.
existentialist, well, not real existentialist. An existentialist holds the position that existence precedes essence. What would this mean in this case? It would mean that before we can have the essence of a lizard, we would have had to have an existing lizard, right? So that the essence of a lizard is something that's derived from the existing lizard. Existence precedes essence.
You're talking about an actual like a lizard, something that's undeniably a lizard that like was born a lizard or whatever. The essence of lizard comes from that existence of that lizard.
From the existing of many lizards, you might say.
Okay.
So one way to think about essence is that it's a category. That you look at many existing lizards and you ask, what do these all have in common? What qualities do they share?
Right.
Let's go back a little bit. I'm not arguing with you about the, in many ways, the simulation of the real. The television is a real artifact. It exists in our world. But I think this allows us to look at how our, I'm trying to think of the right word, be very careful with my words.
So go ahead.
How our experience as a human is mediated by these simulated divided objects. These objects that simulate, and the fact that people simulate as well, and all this, that we have this mediated experience. And I'm not saying I agree with all of this, but I think it's a fascinating way to think about it.
Just said and take it just one step further, right? Our experience is mediated by these technologies. And we make choices on the basis of that mediated experience. So an existentialist is going to say this, that my essence is determined by the choices that I make. So the kinds of decisions that I make, those existential decisions they're sometimes called, those decisions that really are the things that have made me me, you know. I decided to do one thing rather than another thing on a certain day, right? I went to a particular university. I decided not to study Latin as hard as I probably should. These are the kinds of things, these choices are the kinds of things that make my essence. My essence is derived in this way. So if we make choices on the basis of mediated experience, then the mediation of experience is informing our choices and in part determining our essence.
Which is exactly the flight simulator example.
Yeah. Does that work for you? Is that the way of saying it?
So you were saying the choices that we make determine our essence, like our influence.
On this view, yeah.
So I should get a high definition TV. So I was thinking of it in terms of, because we were talking about TVs, and so I'm thinking about, the 4K TVs, whatever they are. Right? So they're, they're higher resolution, they have more pixels, higher pixel density. And so I'm thinking about, like Apple's claim, the Retina display, the 300 dpi or whatever. And if you go and if you read what Nielsen has to say about that, he says that the limit of the eye is 900, around 900 ppi. Right? So if we have some device that is, 950 ppi, is that for the purposes of our sensory organs better than real? Well, we're limited to 900 ppi then.
Yeah.
So,
There's a book called, maybe if I remember, I'll copy of the first pages of this book. It's by John Bender and someone else, and it's called The Culture of Diagram. And it talks about how certain surgeries on the eye are used, using certain kinds of simulation, so that the surgeon that's actually performing the surgery is looking at a representation of the eye that's more exact than anything that can happen in the operating room. It's an interesting book. It's called The Culture of Diagram.
Is that though with the omission of certain details which are scared?
I'll have to go back and pull the article, but it's one that I think speaks to.
Well, I was down at the Science Museum last weekend looking at the Da Vinci surgical simulator, which has high-resolution 3D cameras on the tools that go into your body. So the surgeon is operating through this mediated experience. They operate you on a screen. You know, they're looking at a screen and performing the operation. So, you know.
Right. And so one of the things that is clearly coming more into view here is this problem of, and I'll just introduce a couple key words here. There's something that we haven't yet thought about fully enough when it comes to things like precision, exactitude, and issues like this, exactness. Because think about the high definition image of the lizard on the TV. That might be more colorful. It might be more intense in certain ways that are attractive to our eyes and our neuronal experiences. But that doesn't have the same kind of exactitude as these medical instruments, right? It's a different degree of, and it's a different kind of exactitude and precision. One to create this image that's taken in by the viewer watching the TV screen. One that's actually engaged in some kind of a physical, intervention. I don't know what would be some of the kinds of things that they'd be doing with these
They do
kinds of surgery.
gynecology, he was talking about gallbladder operations, gallstones.
So are they getting down to the cellular level, or probably not?
No, I don't think so. But the nice thing is, and this is a kind of example of it, where two surgeons can be working in the same space, or they can call someone from assistance and transmit the image to some surgeon on their mobile phone on a golf course and check what they're doing. Can
the surgeon controlling the instruments be in a completely different location? than the
Absolutely,
patient?
yeah, different continent.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it is.
They don't do that. This is from Kraus in Syracuse. They have the surgeons on site in case anything goes wrong. But theoretically, they have not used the equipment has been used for telesurgery as well.
Is there anything that, like, about this really advanced imaging that makes it any different from just like a microscope? Just in terms of like the image being better than what we can normally see.
Well,
because when we're talking about like the eye, like the stuff, the imaging technology for the eye surgery, like to me that doesn't seem like, I mean, it's not. It's better than we can see, but that doesn't mean it's better than reality or better than real or something, or more real than.
yeah. It's this.
Stop saying real now.
No, but it's this idea that even looking through a microscope, by these definitions here, looking through a microscope is a simulated experience.
Well, looking through glasses.
Looking through glasses is
Okay, so what about looking through the
we are
cornea?
changing.
I have to switch.
So what about looking through the cornea of your eyes?
That's what I was about to say. Is there anything like an unmediated experience?
I'm looking at.
Well,
Unless I'm just totally void of any external senses in my own head, reality is always mediated. It's the input going into my senses.
There is the experience of unmediated experience, but there is no unmediated experience.
Can you explain that?
Well, go. You'll have to explain that.
We all have, just think about really intense experiences, we think it's real, we just are there in the moment.
Yeah,
Right?
I understand. At
So
least there's a feeling of that.
Because we have that degree
It's
of
the experience of the
experience, we think of it as being unmediated. When we're just remembering it or recalling it, or when it's actually happening to us. Right? We don't, there'd be something pretty weird. We wouldn't actually be in the moment if we thought of the moment as being mediated.
But then you have the soldier over in Iraq who is making a Skype call on his phone with his wife and seeing his baby for the first time, who's just been born, having a very intense experience, but it's through a mediated technology. So how does that?
So I think that would just be a different variation on what I was saying, that then we have to just add to what I said and say that there are some mediated experiences that are so intense that they feel like they are both mediated and unmediated.
Okay.
And
That seems to I get around. You know,
It is. No, because I'm not really trying to get around anything, I'm just trying to describe. I'm not trying to explain or answer anything there, I'm just trying to say, well, let's see if we can describe. Because see, one of the things that keeps coming back at us is this sense that there is the real. And what do we mean by the real? We mean immediacy. Paul Ricoeur invented a term that we call second immediacy, which might be useful here. Second immediacy is when you've reflected on an experience, but yet it still feels like you're having it for the first time. And I think that's one way to describe what he's after there. So I think intelligence and thoughtfulness bring this to ordinary experience. So, you know, when you're in love or something like that, you're aware that your love is sustained and persistent and so on. But that doesn't, so you know, loving a person tomorrow is a repetition of having loved a person the day before.
But it's a different love because we described it as constantly changing.
And the love on the second day has been mediated by the memories of the love on the third, so to speak.
So we can even self-mediate from.
Oh, sure. We can do it.
Self-mediate.
Well, sure. Well, there is no self without mediation.
Okay.
I think that we'd have to say something like that.
Wow. Does it just make poetry wrong? Doesn't that just make them like,
Maybe.
I mean, not right and wrong are kind of the right terms we're using in philosophy, but doesn't that idea just totally the opposite of euphoria, the poetry are? Okay.
Part of the problem is that a lot of times when we're writing things like essays, we're not, when people write essays or give lectures or even write books that where they're trying to stir up some controversy or be challenging, is they want to hold on to the older vocabulary, say that the older vocabulary isn't working anymore, provide some changes, but then they want the people to keep the old vocabulary going so that their position has sets off some sparks.
Okay.
Right? So, but one of the reasons that a lot of rigorous philosophical writing is so boring is that a rigorous philosopher will try not to do precisely that. So that would be one of the ways in which some people would distinguish somebody who's merely a rhetorician from someone who's a philosopher. The philosopher said, let's clean up our vocabulary and let's try to avoid stepping into the same problems repetitively. So philosophers like Wittgenstein are going to say, let's try to clear up all of the nonsense that we can identify. And logical positivists try to do this, and they got into some problems for the simple reason that as human beings, we just can't forget the vocabulary that we used yesterday, even though we come up with some better concepts that are more precise. But,
To me, going back to transhumanism, like I'll say, I want to grow up to be a cyborg.
yeah, me too.
I already live in a mediated environment, so then what's the next step? Is just making my mediated environment that much better.
I experienced this illness, and I've been having some recent muscle weakness. It's not muscle weakness, it's axon weakness in my arm. And I've been all week. I've been saying I want to be a cyborg. I'm going to want to replace this arm pretty soon. But it's getting worn out.
If you read the Donna Haraway, she ties in very well with that very first quote I showed you that we are already in a cyborg society. She has that very fundamental thing. It's funny, my wife is reading Donna Haraway for one of her classes at the moment, and she said to me, and she's been struggling to read it, and she said to me in the